Hello, everyone. I'm Mariah Parsons, and I am joining on as a guest host for the Zip podcast. And today we are joined by Mario. Welcome. I'm so happy to be here interviewing you. You can say hi first, and then we'll dive right into questions.
Thank you. I'm so glad to be a part of this podcast and glad to meet you. And I'm excited, very excited.
Yes. Yeah. And so to my understanding, Zip, they are a cyclist first. They usually speak about technologies and everything. But this episode, we're gonna veer a little bit away from the more technical side of things and have you talk about your story and cycling in general, Momentum Indy, the Major Taylor ride. And so can you tell us about when you first started cycling, really like what got you into the sport, what made you passionate about it?
Yeah, for me, I always think about, because I get that question a lot, like, how'd you get into cycling? And I really feel like it's kind of a two-part question. I feel like, riding a bicycle is one thing and then cycling is another thing.
For sure. Yep.
So, I got started riding a bicycle because I wanted to lose weight. So in about 2018, I was really, trying to lose weight. I was around 459 pounds. So I was, that was kind of one of the things I wanted to do. And I was walking, running, and sought the advice of some doctors, and they told me I should try to ride a bicycle, just because it would be better on my knees and my back, and I was having some back problems with walking. And so I reached out to my local bicycle shop, Shellers Fitness in Evansville, and I was like, hey, do you guys have a bike that can hold me? I was kind of like, I didn't even know, I'm like, in my mind, like, you have a bike that can hold me? And so, yeah, we definitely can, let's do some little research. And so they got a bicycle and I started riding it. And, I was a territory sales manager at the time, so I traveled a lot. And I would take my bicycle with me, and I loved it. I was like, man, it was a great way for me to get outside, and it was just kind of like me and alone time with God. And I could just being out there in nature. I loved it. I got into cycling in 2020. So when the pandemic happened and everything kind of shut down, they shut down the gyms. I still wanted to be, active. I still wanted to kind of work on my fitness. And so I was on Facebook and I was looking for, bicycling groups, and I came across Evansville Bicycle Club. I was like, oh, what's this? What's going on with this? And so I kind of joined the group, and I was seeing, cyclists on there, and I kind of introduced myself, and another guy, Clippinger, he cycled in the past but wanted to kind of get back into it. And so we decided to meet, and we kind of went out on the trail. And I at that time, I was going 13, 14 miles an hour. I felt like pretty good. And he was riding with me, and I remember he was riding and his legs were going like 1,000 miles a minute. I'm like, what? Like, what's he do? He's working hard over there. And I'm just kind of like, I'm a smasher at that point. I'm just a grinder. I'm just smashing.
Yeah.
And then, I could stay with him, as we're going on the flat, but anytime we got to any little bit of the hill, he would just zoom right up, and I'm like, what is that? I want some of that right there,
Right.
And so he began to talk to me about cadence and shifting gears. And I'm type of an all-in person. And so I'm like YouTube. Yeah, I find GCN. I'm start watching all these YouTube videos, and I'm like all about like cycling. I'm trying to ask all these questions. And so that's kind of how I got into it, how I was introduced to it. And, I think it's kind of one of the things that once you get in, it's there's no turning back, So I really enjoyed cycling. I got really involved with the Evansville Bicycle Club. I became membership chairman in 2021. And then this year I was voted for vice president of our local bicycle club. So.
Oh, awesome. Okay. Do you think that because I can hear the passion in your voice, right, when you're talking about cycling, which I love, right? And I'm not a cyclist myself, but I was a rower for 8 years. And so I definitely understand the kind of you just get hooked on it, and then you're like, oh, I really want to just learn more, and everything from the technical side to setting goals for yourself. And so do you think that new element of learning helped with that passion of I forget the name of the person that you had mentioned in the Evansville Bike Club?
Oh, Clifton. Yep.
Okay, Clifton.
Yep.
Yeah. So him kind of bringing you in, showing you oh, what he could do. And then you were kind of oh, I want to do that too.
Yeah. So I'm always about self-improvement and setting goals, and, trying to do whatever you can to reach those goals. And, that was a part of it, learning. But for me, and the thing I really like just kind of drew me to it, because cycling is about you versus you.
Yeah.
No one can ride the bike for you. No one can pedal for you. It's really you versus you. Are you better than you were yesterday? And that's what really kind of like drove me to like, man, I want to be better. I'm always like, I want to be better. I want to be better than Mario yesterday, Mario last year, Mario 3 weeks ago. I always want to be better. And so cycling, I had that drive to always try to be the best of what I do, not the best person in the room. I always want to be the best version that I am. I want to be best Mario. So that really just kind of drew me. And when I ride with other guys and people, and I would, pick up on things, and they would show me things, and I would just add that to my arsenal and try to become the best cyclist I can be. Now, I know I don't look like the typical cyclist. Every time I
Oh,
go out to
please.
somewhere and I'm to different races, I'm like the big guy. I'm a pretty big guy, and then people like, oh man, but then they see me ride like, oh man, he is a cyclist. Um, for me, that's kind of one of the things that really, just drove me to it. Just always try to be the best person that I can be, the best cyclist I can be. And I tell everyone all the time, cyclist is for anybody, but may not be for everybody. Anybody can ride a bike. Anybody can become a cyclist if you want to, but there's certain things that you may not love, like I love. You may not enjoy. You say you're a rower. You probably love it. You're passionate about it. I've been on a road machine. I'm pretty good, man. I'm okay. Get me on the bicycle.
It's something, I'll tell you that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
Some
something.
people are really passionate about running. Hey, I've done a half marathon before. I have at it. I love bicycling. So I believe cycling is for everybody, but for anybody, but may not be for everybody.
Yeah, no, I definitely love that. And I think that point that I just want to highlight this, like you saying, you're like, oh, I might not like be the typical cyclist or like look like the rest, but you're still wonderful at your craft. Like, I love that. And I think that really speaks to Momentum Indy and the Major Taylor ride of just like trying to bring in the community, like kind of wiping away some of that, like, oh, you have to be like this or dedicate all of your time and energy to this. Like, you can have multiple identities, but we'll get into that later. I just wanted to call it out. I think that was really special. And so if you had to kind of pinpoint why cycling has become an important aspect in your life, what would you say? Would you say it's because like it's a mechanism or a catalyst for like developing your best version of yourself, or how would you answer that?
Yeah, there's certain things that you learn when you're a cyclist, or you're trying to become a cyclist, that I feel like you can take in every aspect of your life. So again, like I said, I'm always about self-improving, and how can I be a better person? And cycling drives that, out of me. It encourages me to do that. I think every cyclist can relate to a point where you're on a ride and your body's saying, I'm done. And you say, shut up.
Yeah.
I'm finishing. Or your mind, mentally, you're like, I just, you're mentally, you don't want to do it, but you do it anyway. And we all can relate to, there's things in our life, whether it's a professional career, whether it's your home life, there's things that you just don't want to do, but you do it anyway. And I tell you, if you want to be successful, get good at doing the things that you don't want to do, because people who are successful always do the things that they don't want to do, and do the things that other people don't want to do. And cycling, that's what that, again, to become a cyclist, you have to sacrifice things. You have to sacrifice your time. You have to make it a priority. It's not something you can like, I'm going to do it this week, but I'm going to lay it down. It's like starting over all the time. So, those things right there that I learned that are important to me, that makes me become a better person, that's kind of like why I love cycling. It's nothing like getting up 5 o'clock in the morning, getting on your bike, everyone's asleep, you're watching the city come alive, you're seeing the sunrise, and you're out there, you've been put in 20, 25 miles, and people are just waking up and they ain't even had a coffee yet. And you're like, hey, I'm already at it. Let's go. So, that's kind of one of the things that it just kind of draws me to it, why I keep on, want to be involved with cycling. And then also the community aspect of it. I've met so many people through cycling, and so many things that we have that kind of can drive people apart and cause, division. But when you're riding your bike, it don't matter what color you are, it don't matter what you do for a living, it don't matter how much money you have. again, none of that matters when you're riding that bike. No one can pedal for you. No one can do it for you. You have to do it for yourself. So those are the things that I really love and enjoy. Whether you're a CEO, CFO, whether you're a janitor, whether you're just a blue collar worker or you're a doctor, everyone rides the bike the same way on two wheels, or they got to pedal.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I love that. That's beautiful, Mario. I actually, for another podcast, that I host, we had a cyclist on there as well. And he was saying how it's like very common practice, just like, oh, after a ride or something, like you'll go get coffee and kind of get to know the rest of the cyclists and have like more of that relationship bonding. And so I think that's really what like connects people, right? I think that's why when you're in those moments where your body is like, I don't want to do this, or mentally you're like getting up at 5 a.m., right? When you were speaking, it definitely resonated with me. And I agree in that the things that if you do the things that you don't want to do, or you stay consistent with something that is difficult, like working out, whatever that looks like for you, whether it's cycling or not. I definitely think there is a lot of like reward and internal motivation that comes from that. And you had mentioned professionally, like whether it's professionally or emotionally or a personal reason that you like set these goals for yourself and that you keep yourself consistent, that's important. And so you are a sales rep for Stryker, which is like typical, like very business. You're like in the thick of it, right? Like sales is definitely a daunting task. I'm in marketing, and so I work very closely with sales. I know what that sometimes takes, and you have to have a good headspace to be there. And so do you think like the balance of cycling and your profession, how do you see them kind of like relate to each other? How do they help each other ebb and flow? Can you tell us more about that?
Yeah, with me again, with cycling, it's a place where it is a great stress reliever. For me, it's a place that I can kind of get grounded. I can clear my mind. For me, I am a religious person, and so like when I get on my bike, sometimes it's just me and God, and I can talk to Him. I can pray. I can, it's kind of like my center point for me, and that helps me throughout the day. I'm an early morning rider. I call myself a fair weather rider. But I like to get up early in the morning before it gets hot, so me, getting up 4:35, getting out there riding, that's like my time. It works best for me. I'm the freshest there. But when it comes to sales, especially, working with Stryker, it's such a busy schedule. And sometimes, I'm early morning, I'm going to cases. Sometimes cases can run long. Sometimes I can get, 15, 16-hour days. But it like anything, I learned that you make time for what's important to you.
Yes.
And people always say, I wish I had the time. I wish I had the time. Or I wish I could, if I had the money, I would do this. Well, people spend money on what's important to them. You spend your time on what's important to you. So for me, cycling is important to me because, it's way better for my health. It helps me get in shape, helps me stay in shape. And as a sales rep, if you feel good, you'll look good. If you look good, you feel good, you'll sell good. Those go hand in hand. So you have to have, self-confidence to be a sales rep. So in all part of that, I tell people all the time, I've never seen a very great, successful, ugly sales rep. Maybe they're out there, maybe they're out there, but I think everyone who's very successful, that top tier, sales rep, they're handsome or they're beautiful, they care about their appearance. And, so that's something that's really important with me. And I love just the community aspect of it. Again, as a Stryker sales rep, I have been riding with people and I'm talking to them and they're a doctor. I'm like, oh man, I didn't know I work for Stryker. And we're like, oh, you work for Stryker? Yeah. And so, there's that common ground. Or I've walked into many offices and I see some type of cycling memorabilia there or a jersey. And then boom, we're talking shop for like 45 minutes before we even get to any type of, salesman. So it's a great relationship builder in the profession that I am. But it is finding that balance. I'm not always the greatest at, yeah, I'm going out riding today. There's sometimes like, man, I don't feel like doing it, But again, being that consistency, finding that consistency, it is hard at times, but you just have to balance. I think there's highs and lows. There's times that you do really good at it, and sometimes you don't do good at it.
Yeah, I've kind of learned that life lesson in general. Is one of my professional mentors myself, who kind of said like just anything in life is going to ebb and flow. So like I've seen it myself with working out, right? Like staying consistent on like doing something daily, just staying active, and like the same way that sometimes motivation ebbs and flows in like a project that you're doing or something, that you're working on, relationships too, like everything I've had to kind of learn myself too, is everything does naturally flow. You're at that like peak of the
Yeah.
mountain, right? You're like, oh
Yes.
my gosh, this is great. Like, how could I can't even remember what it looks like to be in a valley, right? And then a month later, you're in a valley and you're like, why is this so much harder now? And
Right.
that's part of life, right? And so you had mentioned the community aspect of it, which I love that you're able to bring in that personal factor of like, oh, like cycling, let's relate to each other, whatever, however you're kind of using that as a relationship builder. And we've touched upon it a couple of times, but the Major Taylor ride here in Indianapolis. So quick backstory for any listeners who don't know or aren't from the Indianapolis area. Momentum Indy is hosting the Major Taylor ride, and it's in honor of Indianapolis native African-American world champion cyclist and Marshall Taylor, affectionately known as Major Taylor. And, a big thing of this ride is that people from all over the community, like no matter the age, no matter the level of their ability or their skill set, they're welcome, they're invited to ride along with, some of the best cyclists, right? And so you participated in the Major Taylor ride last year. Can you tell us like a little bit more about that? Like what it meant to you, kind of just the experience as a whole?
Being fairly new in the cycling set, I've only been a cyclist for like the last couple of years. I didn't really know who Major Taylor was until I started cycling. I didn't even know about this cycling community that's out there until I kind of got involved in it. So
Right.
once I found out about Major Taylor, I was actually on the East Coast, and I was able to go to Worcester, I think it's called. And they had like a statue or a monument they were building out there in front of the library. So I was able to travel there and get pictures of that and seen that.
Cool.
And then, actually doing my research, found out, he was born in Indianapolis. I'm like, oh man, and they had a velodrome. I'm like, I lived in Indiana all my life. I never even knew how many times I've driven through Indianapolis and never seen this, never knew anything about it. And so when I heard about the Major Taylor ride, I'm like, oh man, I got to be a part of it. I want to go. I want to see. I mean, especially as an African-American man, I'm like, this is something that I want to be a part of. And learning about Major Taylor, learning about all the different Major Taylor clubs throughout the United States, I just thought, man, this is something that I want to be a part of and really see other like-minded cyclists. And so one of the pictures I sent over, it was me and CJ, and he's one of my good friends. We actually, we game a lot online. So he actually lives in Pennsylvania. And so again, once I kind of started cycling, he cycled before. So once I kind of got into it, he got his bike out and he started cycling. So we kind of we would, post our stuff on Strava, and I would see his rides, he would see my rides. And I told him about this, Major Taylor event, and he came down and came over to Indiana, and we rode that event together. And, it was a great event to see just hundreds and hundreds of riders coming, all, like you said, all different sizes, shapes, different styles and abilities, being able to ride this Major Taylor event. And, me, I not knowing about cycling, I didn't know about crit racing. And, once I kind of got into cycling, CJ, he said, hey man, you should check out Legion of LA. I think that's someone you like. And when I seen Legion of LA, I immediately became instant fanboy, 40-year-old fanboy. I'm like, this is it. This is me, the swag, I just like fell in love. I was like, oh man, Legion of LA. I started following them, and I knew that they were going to be up here that weekend too, as well. I was like, I'm definitely going, just to see them, and Justin and Corey Williams. And so, being a part of Major Taylor, it really just brings out awareness. I love events where there's hundreds or even thousands of cyclists riding together. Here in Evansville, we have our club and we do group rides, and every once in a while we get everyone kind of on the same page, and we get 40, 50 cyclists together, and you go out and riding. And when you're on the road, people are honking, they're waving, kids are waving, and you look on social media like, hey, I seen a bunch of these cyclists out there, and everyone, oh man, it looks cool. Like, I mean, it looks cool when you see a pace line and you see 40, 50 people. You're like, what is that? That's cool.
Yeah. It's an organized effort. Yeah. Like it's a whole squad. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a whole squad. So again, with Major Taylor, and like being able to be a part of any event that does rides like that, I think is great. And I want to be a part of it because it brings awareness. Not only brings awareness to just the local community, but also to fellow African Americans. And I think we need more diversity, more inclusion when it comes to cycling. You don't have to be 125-pound, small frame cyclist to become a cyclist. You can be whatever size you are. You can start, you can ride, and you can enjoy it.
Yeah, no, I love that message. And I think it shines through with the Momentum Indie crew. I know what they're trying to do. They're really pushing that. Like this is, and this podcast is part of that initiative, right? Like how do we get the word out there that it really is like anyone can come and join, even if you aren't, a like super professional cyclist, you're just getting into the sport, or even if you are like, you've been cycling for years on years, right? Like it really is, it is, I think, more of a unique event in that it's so community driven. But I love that factor of bringing awareness to the community, to the people that are there, to the people who can join. I think that's so special. And I know that the CEO of SRAM gave you a limited edition chain to match your bike, and it was a rainbow chain. So can you walk us through, like how that went down, the history of it? Kind of just like, the inside scoop on that story.
Yeah, I flew out to Sacramento for Legion of LA's first race that they had, Into the Lion's Den. And again, I mean, last year I immediately came fanboy. So I was like, they have a race, I'm flying
I love
out.
that.
I'm going, like I'm out. So
yeah.
Luckily my wife's like, go ahead, have your fun, go, you go do that. And so, and again, man, riding to California, you can't beat that. It was just amazing. So I was at the host hotel and I was staying there, and I met a couple of people from SRAM, and again, I'm so new and so green. They were like looking at my bike. I have a Trek Madone SLR7 Project One, so had a custom paint job on there, and they were looking at it and said, hey, I wanted you to meet someone, and here's Ken. And I was like, I'm talking to him. He's asking about my bike, and I'm telling him, and then he said, man, what would look great on that bike? And I'm like, what's that? He's like, a rainbow chain. I'm like, I know, I want one. I've tried to find, because I've kind of got a lot of accessories on my bike, different decals on the wheels, and bottle cages, and I even seen them, but they really only made them for mountain bikes. They didn't make them for road bikes. And he's like, well, it's a world championship chain, only the world champions get them. I'm like, you're the CEO, like you can make this happen. Come on now, don't tease me. Come on, man, let's make this happen. So he had his people kind of get my information. He's like, I'm not making any promises. And it was funny because later that evening there was a media event, and I was talking to him. He was there, and he was saying, man, my wife, I got to the room, and my wife was like, you should get that chain for that guy, And I was like, oh, I got the wife, involved.
Yeah.
It's Team Mario. Here we go. Go. And it wasn't about 2 or 3 weeks afterwards, I got a box from SRAM, and it was a nice letter from Ken. It had the chain on there, in there with the world champions and Mario, and t-shirts and swag stuff in there. So I was very pleased, and such a down-to-earth guy. Was able to meet his wife, and learn a little bit more about his story and how he's been really all over the world. So that's the thing about cycling. The common theme was we like cycling. Mm-hmm. And if you had told me years ago, I'm talking to CEO SRAM, like how does that even happen? Just the love of cycling. And I've been in sales for like 13 years. And I tell you all the time, my dream job would be to work for a cycling company, travel the world at events, promote cycling, promote diversity and inclusion. And it's something I'm loving and I'm passionate about. So that's kind of like the story behind that chain. I even told him, I said, well, one day I'm gonna work for a cycle. I don't know what cycling company, but one day that's what I want to do because I'm so passionate about it. It brings me so much joy. And like you mentioned before, I didn't come to cycling until I was 38, or actually no, 39. So 39 years, I never knew about the community. I never knew like how much fun this could be. And there's a lot of people out there, they just have no idea. And like I said before, cycling's for anybody, but may not be for everybody. And the people who don't know about it, I feel like it's my duty, my job to like, hey, you should try this out. You don't know what you're missing. When you talk about the struggles that people have mentally, mental health, I mean, cycling, you're out there, you gain mental toughness. There's so many benefits to it. I just wish everyone could experience it.
Yeah, I mean, you're convincing me. I'm like, maybe I need to hop on a bike, right? Like, yeah, that's special, and I love that you are so like that vision is so clear for you, and that like that would be such a dream because you love cycling so much, and I know that passion is coming through, and so speaking to like that mental toughness, that mental fortitude, helping others find the cycling community, like ideally what kind of impact would you like to see on the communities that you're a part of? Like if you could kind of like give advice to anyone, what would that look like?
As far as the community, and I may see this, like in Evansville, Indiana, we have the Evansville Bicycle Club, and there's tons of different clubs. I'm pretty sure Indianapolis probably sees this too. A lot of times people join a club because of just the kind of location of where those people live at, and it's easier to access kind of the group rides. I ride with the group TDBG, which is Tour de Bluegrass. It's a group of guys that we ride every morning, like 5:45, Tuesdays and Thursdays. And even though I'm, vice president of Evansville Bicycle Club, I ride with those guys more just because of where I live at and where they live at. It's easier access. They like to ride in the mornings. I like to ride in the mornings.
For sure.
But one thing I would like to see as far as the cycling community is I think every city should have a organization made up of all the different cycling clubs, some type of board where once a month, like every club comes together for a ride.
Cool.
Again, instead of like, and I'm just talking this kind of locally, like I have Evansville Bicycle Club. I know there's TDBG. I know there's a 515. There's Hugas. There's all these different. There's SIT, Southern Indiana Triathlon Team. There's all these different clubs that ride bikes. It would be nice to be able to get a committee where it's kind of sponsored by the city and which would promote something like kind of like the Major Taylor Ride has, where all the clubs would come together and then they would promote. If you don't have to be a cyclist to come to this ride. We're going to have a 5-mile route, a 12-mile route, a 30, a 60-mile route, and have it where it's in the city and visible, where people can see all the cycling, and that will promote just better health. It will promote, cycling. It promote, inclusion. It will promote, just unity. That's something I would like to see more in the cycling community, not just in Evansville or my city, but in every city. Because I feel like every city has all these different clubs, and which is great. But can all the clubs come together, at least once a month or once a quarter, to promote cycling as a whole? If we want cities to invest in bike lanes and not just invest in bike lanes, but the maintenance of bike lanes, I think that's a big key factor right there. Is I see city, we're going to have another bike lane. We're going to do these bike lanes. So that bike lanes are great, but we have to make advancement or just funding for how we're going to maintain those bike lanes, because you can ride in a bike lane if it's cluttered with trees and nuts and boats and glass. It's not safe. So you see cyclists, they're riding in the road instead of the bike lane because the bike lane is filled with just debris and stuff. So again, if we had the cyclist community come together as a whole and they were meeting and they were being able to kind of advance those goals and thoughts, I think would be better. The impact that I want to make is I just want to make sure that everyone knows cycling's for everyone. I have gotten lots of messages and talked to tons of people that were inspired to ride bikes because they see me ride and I post a lot and they want to be involved. And again, that's just kind of my personal goal is just to inspire people to ride, inspire people to be better than what they were before. And to me, that's what I think as a human race, that's what we should all strive to be better than what you were yesterday. I am a big Kobe Bryant fan, Mama mentality. He was my favorite basketball player. You can see I got a big Kobe poster.
Oh, I see it. Yep.
I got a Kobe Bryant Mama mentality, but Mama mentality. That is me. And, Mamba mentality is about enjoying the process. If you enjoy the process, you'll never reach the destination. So again, it's always about, listen, I'm always going to strive to be better. Because if you always do that, you'll never reach your destination. And even the greatest and the most, world-renowned cyclists in the world, they always have something they're trying to work on and be better at and be better at. And joining the cycling community, it helps foster that and get you in that mind frame of, I want to be better than yesterday. And so if you're working on that area in cycling, it can bleed over into your professional career. I want to be a better sales rep than I was yesterday. I want to be a better father than I was yesterday. I want to be a better husband. I want to be a better mother. I want to be a better daughter. I want to be a better friend. I want to be better than what I was yesterday. So when you get in that mindset, I want to be better than what I was yesterday, it bleeds over to every part of your life, every area in your life. And if every area in your life you're thinking about, I want to be better, I want to be better, and I'm going to do things to make me better. I can say I want to be a better cyclist all day long, but if I'm not trying to eat better, if I'm not trying to learn how to maintain my cadence and learn my proper ride form, I got to work on those things. And just like if you want to be a better wife or a better husband or a better, whatever career, a better, in marketing, you have to work on those things to do that. And that's what cycling kind of brings. It gets me in that mindset that to be better and don't be satisfied to where I'm at.
Yeah, I love that. That's a beautiful note to end this on. Mario, thank you so much for coming today, talking to us, making the time, being so intentional with your words. I know I've appreciated it during this whole interview, and I know our listeners are going to appreciate it as well. And I cannot wait for the actual Major Taylor ride to happen. It's coming up in just the end of August, so it's going to be here, I'm sure, before we know it. But sincerely, thank you from the bottom of my heart. This has been awesome.
Thank you for having me. And I'm excited to be here, and I'm excited to be at the Major Taylor ride, and it's going to be great. It's going to be great.
Yeah. We hope, if you're in Indianapolis, listeners, we hope to see you there.